God bless you, everybody. My name is Beverly, and today is September 14th, 2017. I want to share something with you that I believe and know that God would have you to know. This has been on my heart, and I know that the Lord would have you to know this. And this is about a warning about debt and some knowledge about how debt is being used against you. And I want to share that with you because the Lord would have you to know, because He loves you and wants to see you delivered from all oppression. There's some oppressions that we won't be delivered from in this world, but there's some things that we don't have to go through, and we make things harder on ourselves because of what we don't know and because of how men take advantage of us. So for some reason, the Lord has brought this to my attention, and He would have you to know. So I'm going to share it. This morning I had a dream. The long and short of it is, the dream was about how debt was structured to make it hard for people to pay it back. And also how corporations and people that you work for not paying people daily also kept people from paying their debts. So I want to talk about that. And I real quick want to read a dream that I had back in August of 2015 that I knew right away that I should share. But, I didn't. So I'm going to share it now. So this was August 25th, 2015. There were two men dragging a dragon head that was severed, and they were going to eat it. And as they were dragging it past some airplane thing, they blew up. Now, this time was a famine, and there was no food, and people would fight over anything to eat. They were fighting over anything that was edible. So banks were offering credit at very, very, very high interest rates. A loan of $5,250 instantly became $18,000 that you had to pay back. So as soon as you borrowed it, it grew to $18,000. So people were doing this, and they were agreeing to these terrible terms. So there's a person, I'm going to call their name Sally. They put this loan onto my phone because that's the way the loan was. It was so easy to get. All you had to literally press a couple buttons on your phone, and you were not even really applying for, but basically accepting this loan. And it would just instantly download into your bank account. And you could even spend it from your phone, because at this time, the phone was like your wallet. Anything you needed to do, you could do it from your phone. So the person put this in my bank account, and I was like, what did you do that for? I don't want that. And I sent it back. So then there was another person that we knew, and this person, Sally, did the same thing to him. And she downloaded this money into his phone also. I have no idea why this person was doing this. I don't even think they were getting paid to do it. I think they just didn't see the harm in it, and they just were the kind of person that just doesn't think, that just is asleep and just doesn't take anything seriously. I don't really know why this person was doing this. They're just silly. And so this person, I'm going to call him Brad, the second person that she downloaded the money into his account, he was going to take it because he was like in a tight spot where he was waiting on his next paycheck. So it would have been good for him to have a little bit of money in between now and when his paycheck was going to come. I think his paycheck was going to come like in a few days. But he was being like a little bit impatient, and there was a little bit of pressure on him. So I warned him. I was like, do not touch that money, because if you touched it, that's when you would activate that interest rate and you would instantly owe back that $18,000. Not saying that you had to pay it back right that day, but as soon as you touched it, it grew. That's how high the interest rate was. So he got mad at me when I told him don't touch that money. He just wanted to be in denial about how bad debt is, I guess. And so he got mad at me. He starts like cussing me and stuff like that. So for some reason, instead of me getting angry, I just, went over to him. I was like, it's okay. Because I just couldn't understand why he blew up like that. So I figured, there's got to be something more to this, something behind this, why he's so, gone. And then so, I told him it was okay, and I hugged him, and he started softening up. And he was, and I noticed that, strong people, they were strong the day before, but they're not strong today because the pressure was getting greater and greater, and the times were getting harder and harder, and they were being squeezed harder and harder. So that was his day to break. So, I was comforting him, and he had softened up. So then after that, and then I also had this thought I want to throw out there that I thought that the elite, they were killing all the animals, destroying all the animal habitat and all that stuff, so that, when they bring the famine upon the world by, how they have all the agriculture on lockdown, no one's growing anything except for them. And they try to, get you into the cities and get you doing any other thing except for doing self-sustaining things. So, so that when they're killing all the animals, so that when they introduce the famine by holding back the agriculture, that they'll have everybody under control like they want. And no one will be able to go and hunt or fish or provide food for themselves. So anyway, back to the loan. There was another woman there, and she was a silly, Oprah Winfrey feminist type woman. And she says to me, bleeding heart, liberal, hate to just use such generalities, but that's the way it is. So she says, his kids are hungry. Why he should go ahead and take this egregious loan with this god-awful interest rate when he could just wait a few days and be paid. So she said, but his kids are going to be hungry. And I said, no. If his kids are hungry, he can bring them to my house, and I'll throw something together for them to eat. So this woman says, but they don't want that. She was meaning they want McDonald's, or they want something good that he could buy if he were to go ahead and get this loan. So the loan was not of total necessity. It was extra money just to put you in debt. And this woman, she just was clueless about how grave and serious a matter going into debt is. In our culture, we have been taught We've been desensitized to debt. Debt is slavery, and God did not intend it for us. He said you will be the lender and not the borrower when you're blessed. And when you're cursed, you'll be the borrower and not the lender. Debt is a curse from God. You are living under a curse when you need to borrow money and you borrow it. Remember the widow woman whose sons were about to be taken, and she went to the prophet. She didn't go to the banker, she went to the prophet, and he told her what to do to get out of debt, to redeem her sons, because her sons were about to be taken into slavery because of the debt that was left by the death of their father. So anyway, the banks that were downloading this money into people's accounts, they were not downloading the money to make money off the loans. They were downloading the money just to put the people in debt. They just wanted people in debt so that they could enslave them, so they could control them. So I also wrote there was chaos when the famine was. And all the people were very angry and stressed because of all this pressure. And I wrote that a lot of the people's hearts would be easily melted with love, because the love of many had waxed cold because of iniquity. So in the face of real, genuine love, it was possible for many people's hearts to be melted. But real love, not tolerance of lascivious lives and behavior, but real love that corrects and tells the truth, not just putting up with naked men rubbing on each other in the street. That's not love. So that was that dream. So now I'm going to just reiterate the one that I had this morning. It was a dream about how debt was structured to make it hard for people to pay it back. And also how them, meaning like corporations and businesses, not paying people daily made it hard for people to pay their debts. So real quick, I want to say about that. In this day of, digital banking transactions, in, a digital swipe in, clock in, finger punch in, there's absolutely no reason whatsoever that we cannot be paid daily for the work that we do on our jobs. There's no reason why people should be sitting around for 2 weeks waiting on money. And in that waiting on money, a lot of people do a lot of desperate things that turn out to be very dumb and unwise with money. Where if they had their money coming in as they earned it, then it wouldn't be that way. So somebody has to have gas money for 2 whole weeks while they wait on their paycheck. My expenses don't stop just because you only want to pay people every 2 weeks. Some people only get paid once a month. So, there may have been a period of time, which I know this was always a trick, but there may have been a period of time where they have more of an excuse, because of the way they did payrolls and writing checks and all that stuff, not to pay everybody every day. But now, it would just, as soon as you punch in and punch out, that money can be generated. Payroll taxes and all of those calculations that come out of paychecks can be done instantaneously by computers. And they are done by computers. And there's no reason for them to be holding people's money for 2 weeks, for a month, and longer, because when you first start a job, they take you in the hole. Is that for your advantage or is that for their advantage? That's for their advantage. Because the longer they take to pay you, the more desperate and disadvantaged you'll get, the more money you'll borrow, and the less likely you are to pay back the money that you borrow. Because you get this mindset in your mind where I got to hold on to everything, where I don't want to put a chunk of money on this debt because I don't know what's going to happen between now and the next time I get paid. Whereas if you always had steady money coming in, people would pay their debts and they would stop getting into debt. And also for some people, they simply don't exercise the discipline to be able to stretch out their money for 2 weeks. You know, they get paid, and because they've been so long without money, either they just go crazy and spend it all, or they just cannot manage a budget that they have to maintain for so long. And the job, they get to keep your money on their books unnecessarily, without any reason whatsoever that benefits you, nor any excuse, that legitimate excuse that they can name. They get to keep your money on their books, where they're making interest off of it, where they can borrow against it, where they can just have it, use it, spend it until the last minute when they have to give it to you. And like I said, there's absolutely no excuse for keeping people's paycheck when they first start a job. I know somebody who just recently lost their bank account because when they started a job, they had gone like a couple of dollars, literally a couple of dollars, into an overdraft. And the bank closed their bank account while they were waiting on that, while they were waiting on their paycheck. Now they can't open a bank account with that bank anymore. Luckily, it was such a small, piddly amount of money that the bank didn't bother reporting it to the little check systems or whatever they have now. And so she was able to go and open a bank account somewhere else. But if it's over an amount of $100, they'll put you in a system where you can't even get a bank account. All because somebody was holding your money unjustly. I want to read from James, starting at chapter 1. James chapter 5, starting at verse 1. Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasures together for the last days. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is kept back of you, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth. And the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of the Sabbath. I'm going to read that again. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of the Sabbath. If you have people working for you and you're ripping them off, and you know they need their money and they're living paycheck to paycheck and messing around with payday loans because you owe them money, the Lord is hearing those people's cries. If you got rich by these means, or you don't pay people a fair wage, that also applies to that too. You got rich. They did all the work, and you got rich by it, and you don't give them what they need to live off of. The Bible says, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Verse 5, ye have lived in pleasure on the earth and been wanton. Wanton means wickedly wicked, unnecessarily, just wicked beyond measure. That's what wanton means, like just dripping in wickedness. Ye have nourished your hearts as in a day of slaughter, like when all the lions lay around and eat the giant buffalo that they just killed, and they just gorge themselves, and they're all just covered in blood all over their faces because this big feast they're having flies all over there. That's how these rich people feed themselves, because there's just so much. Verse 6, ye have condemned and killed the just, and he doth not resist you. People just go and accept it. I just started a new job. Never mind, they've been without a job for 2-3 months. Now you're going to make them wait a whole month to get paid. Wicked. But verse 7 is to the just. Be patient, therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman waiteth for the precious fruit of the earth, and hath long patience for it, until he receive the early and latter rain. Be ye also patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord draweth nigh. So what's your solution to this? Don't be paycheck to paycheck. Be wise with your money when you spend it, when you get it. Don't spend it all up. Don't be caught at the next pay waiting for that paycheck to hit your account. Do what you have to do. Cut back what you have to cut back. Beans are still pretty cheap. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Do whatever you have to do until you have a paycheck in the bank yourself, so that you don't have to do anything desperate or crazy if a little bit of a lean time comes or while you're waiting on a paycheck. Don't let your next paycheck find you waiting for it like this. Because when we have a desperate mindset, we do desperate things. And you're less likely to want to pay that money back. If you have a credit card, or you won't put extra on your student loans if you don't know what's going to happen between now and your next paycheck. Get a little security up under you. The paycheck to paycheck mentality leads to a lot of debt, is what I'm saying. Now, the second part of that, one part was, how them not paying people daily kept people from paying back their debt. But the first part was how debt was structured to make it hard for people to pay it back. Let's break that down and just see how grievous this thing is. Sorry, I'm looking up something real quick I want to read to you. Well, I might not be able to find it, but there was a scripture. I don't know if it's Isaiah or Jeremiah. I think it's Jeremiah, but what it was talking about, the Lord was showing Jeremiah, I believe it was Jeremiah, all the wickedness that was done. And he was telling him, each thing he would show him, look over here, and you'll see greater wickedness than that. And then he show him, see how they go upon the high hills and worship the host of heaven. And don't get too blown away by that. I'll show you greater wickedness than that. And this is what they're doing over here. Look over here. He was just pointing out to that prophet all of the wickedness that was done among these people. And sometimes I feel like that. I'm like, why do I have to? I'm not going to say why do I have to, because I'm happy to do whatever the Lord wants me to do, say whatever He wants me to say. But sometimes it is that way where I'm just, guys, did you know about geoengineering? Oh, guys, did you know about Agenda 21? Now it's, guys, did you know that they keep your money on purpose to keep you broke? And did you know that the way they even structure a loan from the first day you take it, they want it to be hard for you to pay back. They don't want you to be able to pay it back. They want you to keep it forever and for it to grow and grow and grow. And for you to always own them and to always be their slave. So I am going to, because of this dream, and I've always meant to do this anyway, but I'm going to tell you something that very few people understand about interest. We have a general idea about interest, and that is, interest is the amount of money that you pay a person when they loan you money. Oh, that's fair. I'm paying you because you loan me your money. And there is even a type of interest in the Bible that is just, that we ought to pay. But then there was another type of interest that was called usury. And the Lord commanded His people that they should not exact usury against their brother. And there used to be laws in the United States against usury. And usury is defined as outrageous interest rates, where you're just taking advantage of someone who is in need and has to borrow money. An example of that everybody would know would be loan sharks. So there used to be laws against that in the United States. And people were, when you took out a loan, it was something that was legitimate. And you would, for a reasonable charge, be able to borrow some money and have a chance to pay it back. But it's not so anymore. The laws against usury have been lifted. There's no law against usury anymore. And people don't understand interest, and they don't understand interest rates. All they know is, I'm going to be able to get this thing that I don't have the money to buy, but I'm going to be able to get it. And all I have to do is take out this loan or put it on this credit card. So to help you understand how devious and devilish debt is, I'm going to explain interest to the best I can. Okay. Let's say you borrow $10,000 from a bank. You want to buy a car. So you borrow this, let's say $12,000, because most of these little cars cost more than that. So say you want to buy a used car, and you're going to pay $12,000 for this car. You go to the bank and they say, oh, you have bad credit. You have bad credit and therefore you don't qualify for a good interest rate. We'll loan you the money, but we're going to charge you. I've heard of this. This is crazy, guys. People paying 19% interest on a car loan, 24% interest on a car loan. So, that's not a good interest rate. You know your credit's kind of messed up. So, and you want this car, so you go ahead and accept it. Not really comprehending what this interest rate, the big difference that this interest rate is going to make. All you know is your payment. Let's say we said the car is $12,000. They're going to charge you 19% interest. And you're going to pay for this car over 6 years. You're going to make what is that? 66 payments. How many payments is that? 5 years is 60 payments. 72 payments. You're going to pay for it over 6 years. So, you are going to pay. Let me make sure I did that right. $12,000 car at 19% interest multiplied by 6 years. So you're going to pay $13,680 in interest on a $12,000 car. So that means you're not buying a $12,000 car. You're buying a $25,000 $680 car. Now you can go to any car lot in America, and there's going to be a huge difference between the $25,000 car and the $12,000 car. The $25,000 car is going to be a lot nicer. But guess what? You're paying the same money when you borrow that money at 19% interest that someone who has the money to pay for what they're buying can go in and put down and get a car. They're just going to go in, they saved up the $25,000 or they have it for whatever reason and they pay $25,000. Or let's say they have better credit and they have 0% financing. They don't pay anything. They just break that $25,000 up over 5 years into 60 monthly payments, and they pay $428 a month. But it's still bad because you're borrowing money and anything can happen in your life where you won't be able to pay that back. Then all of a sudden that 0% interest goes away and it gets jacked up to something much higher where they come and repossess that car and your credit's messed up. And then next time you buy a car, you're over there with Joe in our example and you're paying 19% interest also. So all these things are structured to knock you down into that place where you borrow and can't repay it. Okay. So here we are. You just paid $25,000 for a $12,000 car. Okay. So remember we said you're going to pay it off over 6 years. So your payment is $356 a month. And all you look at is, oh, I can afford that. And you totally go blind to the fact that you just paid $25,000 for something that might not even be worth the $12,000. And every day you have it, it's worth less and less and less. Now, just like the Lord said when he was talking to that prophet, oh, look over here, I'm going to show you something even more wicked than that. It's not wicked enough that they take that innocent looking little number, 19%, and they make you think, oh, this 19%, what's the difference? Okay, now you've paid more than double what the car was worth. And as if that's not bad enough, let's look at how they structure the payments to make sure you owe them as much as possible for as long as possible. Let's look at it. So, let me get these numbers back. Okay, so here's your $13,680 in interest, plus $12,000 that you owe for the car. You're actually borrowing $12,000. So the bank, you sign for the loan, the bank takes $12,000 and gives it to the car lot. The car lot is done and they're out of the picture. They're done. All they got was $12,000. You only borrowed $12,000. But in comes this interest rate. And then based on the interest rate, they calculate the interest. You're going to pay back the $12,000 plus you're going to pay back $13,680. Those two in a column side by side. One, the original amount you borrowed is called the principal. The other column is the $13,000 and that's called the interest. These people are so wicked. When you pay your payment, which we said was $356, you say, well, I can afford that. Guess what? What do you pay first? You pay interest. They separate that amount into two columns. One is the interest and one is the principal. So this is how they figure the interest. You ever heard these terms? 19% APR, which is annual percentage rate. And then they'll throw in a little something on the end saying compounded daily. That APR, that annual percentage rate, that 19%, it compounds daily. Let's look at what that means. I wish I had some sort of a chalkboard or something to write on to hold these figures in the air. So we take the interest, so the interest for the year, because you have your annual percentage, your APR, your annual percentage interest yield or whatever it is. So 19% of that $12,000 is $2,280. So compound it daily. So I divide that amount by $365. That means you owe interest on that $12,000, $6.25 every single day. Okay? So now the month is, you make your payments monthly. So they calculate how much interest you owe for the month, which will be $6.25 multiplied by how many days are in that month. Now let's say there's 31 days in that particular month. So you owe $193.64 interest that month. Okay. Remember how much your payment was? It was $356. So that means you make a payment for $356, and the $12,000 that you owe, that's over here in the principal column, that's how much you actually owe them. What's over here gets, you paid $356, but what actually comes off of your principal is $162, because you pay the interest first, the interest on the entire amount, broken up by the day, each and every month, and you pay it first. You pay it before any money is ever applied to the amount that you owe. So when you pay $350, $160 comes off what you owe. So this interest column is being paid. It's constantly growing. It's always growing, and you're paying it down. But this amount over here, your principal, what you actually owe them, is just going down by a little bit. It's just going down by a little bit. So by the time you really get this loan almost paid off, let's say you get down to where you only owe $1,000. Multiply it by that interest rate, and then divide that by 3. Look how complicated this is. Is there any reason for this other than so you won't understand it? Okay, so you owe 52 cents a day. This is when you get your loan down to where you only owe $1,000 left of all that money that you owe, that $12,000, which is why it goes down so slow, because you're constantly only paying interest. So we multiply that by the 31 numbers. And so now, toward the end of your loan, the $356 that you're paying as a payment, of that $356, because now the interest is only down to $16 a month. Now $339 of your payment is going to pay down the loan. So at the end, the loan is going down really fast, because the payment that you're making is actually eating the principal now, instead of just paying them interest. So how does that work as an advantage to them? Okay. By the time you pay that off, you've paid them all this money in interest before you pay off the car. So if you default on that loan, the later you default on it, the more to their advantage it is, because you've already paid them, for the car twice already. You already paid them for what they owe you. And let's say halfway through the loan, you default. Okay. Now, by that time, since you've been mostly just paying interest, you have paid off half the amount that you owe them, but you haven't brought the car amount down by half. You still owe them the bulk of the money owed on the car. So they take the car, sell it to somebody else, and they're still coming after you for almost the whole amount of the principal. If that made any sense. And this is how they structure interest. The bigger the loan, the bigger the interest, and the bigger the ripoff. Let's take a home loan and just work some numbers for you buying a house. Say you buy a modest house, $100,000. And your interest rate is, you didn't have the best credit, so your interest rate is 5.7%. So they look for any reason for you to have bad credit, so they can always charge you more for interest. So your interest for the year on that $100,000 is $5,700. But we're going to compound that daily. So we're going to divide it by 365 days in the year. So that's $15.62 a day that you're going to owe. Multiply that by how many days in the month? 31. So, listen to this, guys. So your interest for the month is $484. That's how much that's just poof, going away of your payment. Just poof. It's not taking down your principal. It's just gone. Now let's figure out how much your monthly payment is. So we borrowed $100,000, 5.7% interest. Our payment is $484. Oops. Bear with me. Doing all these figures right now. Okay. Oops. So with a house payment, that's over 30 years. So we got to multiply that interest rate times that amount of interest, which is $5,700 a year, over, let's say, 30 years. Now, it's not going to be $5,700 the whole time because your principal will be going down a little bit. And with a home loan, it's really going down slow. I want to try to figure this out with a home calculator because they can. Okay, now let's say we borrow $100,000. They have mortgage calculators that you can look at that'll break this down. Okay, and we want to do this over 30 years. Okay, listen to this, guys. So, remember I just told you that your payment or your payment is, your interest payment for that first month is $484. Guess how much your payment is? $581. $581. So $100 is not even going to pay down your principal. So since the interest is always calculated off the principal, they keep the principal as high as possible for as long as possible by having you pay the interest first. That way, when they recalculate the interest again the next month, it's maxed out. And there couldn't be any slower way to pay it off. They mathematically could not play with the numbers any slower play with it in any way to have you paying this thing off any slower and without them getting the maximum amount of money. So debt is structured in such a way that makes it hard for you to pay it off. If you sell your house in 10 years, because of the way they structure it, you have made, say your payment is $580 a month. Let me pull my calculator back up. $580 a month times paying for 10 years. So that's 120 months. You have paid $70,600 towards this house. And remember, the house was only $100,000. So when you go to sell this house in 10 years, say you get your whole $100,000 for it, common sense would be telling you, well, I owe the bank, I paid 70. This is the way people's minds think. We don't even realize this is how we think. I've paid $70,000 toward this house. It's been 10 years. But of that $100,000 that I borrowed, I don't owe $30,000 like logic would think. No. You probably still owe like 80,000 of it, not 30, because you've paid 70. You probably still owe like $80,000 after having paid on it that long, because you're paying down that interest first before they let you make any substantial gains on your principal. Like I said, I wish I had a board, because this is not easy to pick up. And I'm going to tell you how I found out about this. When I bought my first car using credit, I had a high interest rate. I think the interest rate was like 11%, maybe like 11.8%. I didn't understand what that meant. All I knew was they approved me for the loan. I got this car that I always wanted. The payment was really high. The payment was $507 a month. So here I am sending these people $507. So I think I get like my first statement or two, and I'm looking at it. And I'm thinking, wow, I just sent a $500 payment, and it's still saying I owe basically the same amount, still saying I owe, or maybe I made a few payments, and I'm thinking, I've sent them, $2,000-$3,000, and I still owe the same amount of money. How is this possible? The amount of money I sent them $3,000. The amount of money has only gone down by like $400. What's going on here? So I called the bank, and I said, I need to speak to somebody about my car loan. I don't understand this. I don't understand how I'm making this huge payment and my loan is not going down. I didn't understand how much in the final analysis I would end up paying. So in the example of that house, your $100,000 that you borrowed, if you pay it back over 30 years, you're going to pay back $208,000, $209,000. You're not going to pay back $100,000. You got to realize the higher your interest rate. Now that's at 5.7%. That's a decent interest rate in today's economy. Like I told you, people are paying 29% interest on stuff they're borrowing. Imagine how huge the numbers get. The numbers get outrageous. And they know people don't understand this. Now, I don't know about you. Maybe you were in high school and they wasted months and money to teach people the quadratic equation and to teach you the sum of the interior angles of a triangle that you would never, ever, ever use, probably, and you could live if you never, ever used it. There may be some specialized reasons why some people need to know this. If you become an architect or some such thing like that. But the most people will come in contact with a car loan. They will come in contact with a credit card. What you will come in contact maybe is a house note, a store credit card. You do need to know how interest works. And raise your hand if you were never taught this. So I called this bank. I said, I need to know how y'all calculating this. I think they transferred me 3 times before there was somebody on the line that could tell me how this was calculated. And to this very day, this is the only reason why I know this. And because I was halfway good at math, I stayed with it until I understood what was in front of me. Because otherwise, it just looked like a whole bunch of hocus pocus where I can never pay you back. And why I still owe you scratching my head writing a check. This is the wickedness that is done. and they're calling themselves a legitimate business. Told you what God thinks about you. Go to now, you rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Be patient, therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord. Verse 8, be ye also patient, establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord draweth nigh. God bless you.